During the times in my life when I haven't had a life partner, it has been my top priority, and I make it a big project until I have a life partner again. When I did it the last time, I found some surprises, and I just wanted to share them with you. Normally I speak on other topics. I just kind of fell across this information, and I felt compelled to share it with you. So, okay. Here we go. So, all right. So this talk is mostly applies to people who are straight. I'm straight. That's the stuff I found out. It's not necessarily. It's about monoamory, not polyamory. But it's a big thing in San Francisco to be polyamorous. So you can use this to find your primary partner. Unfortunately, I want to apologize to our friends with other orientations. You might find some useful stuff here, you may not, but in any case you may find it amusing. It's kind of like watching mating rituals of birds on YouTube. It's pretty funny stuff. It's going to be a lot of, I'm very short on time, there's going to be a lot of generalizations. You'll be able to think of exceptions to everything I say. It's going to sound sexist, that's because we're talking about sex. And it's very hard to make men and women sound exactly the same when you're talking about sexual relationships. It's culturally biased, and it's anthropomorphic, so those are my apologies. Then, I'm going to be talking mostly to the ladies. It's easier for me, and also it's the ladies who I think in some cases have possibly been making some mistakes. But the men here are all smart enough to do the mirror image of what I'm saying and say, okay, if she's doing this, then I have to be doing that. Okay. So, what's the goal? My goal, at least, is deep, lasting love and a very long-term relationship, and by which I say 25 years. I'm not going to say a lifetime, that's a really long time, but I think 25 years is pretty good. You can, if you want to have kids, you can raise kids in that period of time. So I think that's good enough. I'd settle for that. Okay. I hear this all the time, and I read it all the time. Women complain men, quote, refuse to commit. Even after years of living together, she has pair bonded, but he has not. This is all over the place. To me, it feels like it's kind of an epidemic, okay? So what's going on here? Ladies, by the way, if you're in this situation, there are ways to back out of it. You can see me later. I don't have time to solve this problem, but there are ways to solve this problem. Okay, so what's going on? I think what's going on is this couple's been together for years, they've had lots of orgasms. I think these orgasms have led her to have high oxytocin level, that's the cuddle bonding chemical in your body. But they don't necessarily work that way. The orgasms do not necessarily work that way for men. They get oxytocin from orgasms, but it doesn't last as long. I've seen it claimed that after about 30 minutes, it declines. So ladies, when men say that when men cheat and they say it didn't mean anything, this is what they're trying to tell you. It's like having a good meal. You had a great meal, but it's over. It didn't mean anything. So what's not working? I'm claiming these things do not work as well as we wish they would. If you know what the 3-date rule is, I don't think it's a good rule. Some people go by the 1-date rule. I think that's an even worse rule. I have young friends who tell me that they're moving in with their boyfriend to, quote, see if it works. That's a really bad thing, I would say. And just hanging out, these are not the ways. I argue this is not the way to find a life partner. So what does work? What works? Okay. This is a very simple idea. Now, this is mainly directed at the ladies. He needs a certain level of dopamine in his brain over a certain period of time to form a pair bond with you. And if you do anything to interrupt that, you disrupt the process, and then he goes off the rails and he doesn't follow the process of forming a pair bond with you. He needs dopamine, okay? So that's your job, to give him some dopamine. He needs dopamine. What is dopamine? It's the wanting chemical. It's the motivation chemical. It's the desiring chemical. It's excitement. It's positive excitement, okay? So he needs a certain amount of it, and he needs it over a certain period of time. Now, yes, you can also give him some, he also needs oxytocin, that's the bonding chemical. That's the one by smiling at him and touching him and kissing him, you give him oxytocin. But you need to give him dopamine too. A lot of it for quite a while. So if you want a lesson, you can watch the movie Pauline at the Beach, which takes place in France, and there's a wonderful man in there who explains to the audience that, and I can't do a French accent, maybe somebody here could help me out, women need to let themselves be desired. And by that, it means you have to have a period of time when he is having dopamine and it's not stopping. So what stops his dopamine? It's the wanting. What stops it? It's the getting. Okay? So you need to have the wanting go on for a period of time before the getting happens. All right. The claim is that this process of having dopamine and thinking that things are going well, it's going well, and then the goal is reached, the dopamine comes down. Apparently this is just a very pleasant process. It's a pleasurable process. Okay, we need to accept our animal nature in the mating process. It's not about the frontal cortex, right? He's not doing a spreadsheet about all your pluses and minuses, and she's like this, and she's smart, and she's funny, and blah, 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 blah. And, and this woman has the highest score, therefore I'm going to marry her. That's not how it works. It's not about intelligence per se. He's not necessarily looking. He's not optimizing for that. We might wish he would, but that's not what's going on. So she's evolved to want certain things. She wants strength, skill, resources. He's evolved to want youth and beauty, because they correlate with fertility. Homemaking is useful, and you see this is in pink, sexual loyalty. It's not even on her list. It's not one of her very top goals, but sexual loyalty is so important to him. Why is that? Well, ladies, you all know who your babies are, and he doesn't know. And he hasn't known since before we were human beings. He's never been able to be really sure that those are his children. Nowadays, you can go to the drugstore and get a $30 kit to actually test it. But our bodies and our biochemistry don't know that. It's going to be a long time before they know that, right? So deep down, there's a part of his brain that is very nervous about this, and with good reason. Okay, here's the reason. Between 1% and 5% of children walking around have a daddy different from the daddy that the legal father thinks. Okay, so I don't know the exact number. It might be on the lower end, but the point is, for those men, they have just lost the genetic lottery big time. They've made a huge investment in raising children that are not theirs, right? So it's very important to men to not get in this situation. Human males have a couple different styles of mating opportunities they pursue. High investment and low investment. Some species pick one or the other. Human males can do both. We're very flexible. So, there's the low investment kind. It's called our style. We would call it friends with benefits. And we're describing it as easy, fast, and cheap. These were terms men in old and unenlightened days used about certain types of women. I used to think they were like, analogies. Apparently, then I realized they're not analogies. These are just simple descriptions of how to get the sex. The sex was easy, it was fast, and it was cheap. Okay, very straightforward stuff. So, low investment, sex opportunities, and high investment. This is the person who, the mother of my children. Now, not everybody wants children, but guess what? His body and the part of his brain that makes these selections, it doesn't believe in not having children, right? The evolutionary process is all about having children. It's all about children. So human males will take advantage of this if it's available, if it's offered. But this decision is super important to him. He has to make sure he's optimizing for youth, for beauty, because they correlate with fertility. Homemaking is nice, but sexual loyalty is super critical for him. So, ladies, when you're meeting men, some part of his brain, not his conscious brain necessarily, but some part deep down, is sorting you into these categories. And I think the default category is over here. In other words, let's see if this might be a low investment mating opportunity. Hey, why not, right? In the old days, if you mistook this kind of lady for this kind of lady and saw if it worked, The worst thing that could happen, if you were careful, was you might get your face slapped. Now, there's no negative downside at all. You know, if she turns you down, what's the problem? It's no big deal. So I think that this is the default. This category is not easy to get into, is my argument. Oh, I'm drawing my face. Okay, so the players, the bad boys. Ladies, we love the bad boys, don't we? Especially up until a certain age. Younger women do tend to fall for these type of guys. It takes a certain number of years before we figure it out. So why do we fall for this? Well, I think it's because this is a viable reproductive strategy for female genes as well, right? Your sons, if you are with him, his sons are probably going to be like him. And he's going to be very successful at reproducing. Now, meanwhile, being the mate of this man, if he even is willing to be a long-term mate, is not very pleasant because he's not home, right? He's out chasing other women the whole time. So, but this, I think that's why women do fall for players, because genetically it is a viable strategy for her. Okay. So what's the suggestion? Let's try to stimulate the falling in love hormonal cascade. And I think it is a hormonal cascade. Those of you who've ever fallen in love in the traditional sense, it is an overwhelming feeling of, if you know what they are, they're hormones in your body. You know, if you're not a scientific person, you might think of it as, well, it's an emotional thing. Yes, it's an emotional thing, but it's based on hormones in your body. And because I come from that background, when it happens to me, I identify it that way. I think, oh my God, I am having an overwhelming hormonal cascade. Why can't I go to Stanford University and get my blood tested and find out what's going on? But both times it's happened to me in the Bay Area, there's nowhere to go that I'm aware of. Where's the Stanford Love Lab? Why can't I go and get my blood tested? I want to see those hormones. I mean, it's a wonderful experience, but I wanted those numbers. Okay, so how do you actually have this happen? I would say that ideally the way to have it happen is before you start having orgasms together. I know it's a radical idea. That's just my suggestion. Okay. So it's a numbers game. There are lots of reasons why it's not easy to find a life partner. There's immunological matching that has to go on, which is why they advocate that you meet in person as fast as possible. You have to actually see this person. I don't know how you pick up on these differences, if you smell them or what, but it's necessary to meet in person. So traditionally, he has his hormonal cascade first. That is, I think, statistically more likely than that she does. Because men seem to fall in love faster. I mean, once I started working on this stuff, I started collecting cultural data. If you just listen to popular songs, things like The Girl from Ipanema, he would die for her. She doesn't even know he exists, okay? Now, does this happen to women? I don't know, but I think it happens to women a lot less, that they fall in love with somebody that they see across a crowded room from South Pacific, falling in love across a crowded room. Does this happen to women? I don't think it happens as much. So then he starts wooing. That's an old word. That's the period of time when he's decided that he wants her. She's not sure. This is a very special period of time, ladies. You are still in possession of your intellectual faculties. He is not, right? He is not. His are gone. He's decided you're the one. He's going for that. But you are not sure. You can still think rationally. Use that time, right? So she verifies he is solid. How do you do that? Well, don't start just dating one man. You have to compare different ones, and you should be trying to date 3 at a time. And it's easier than you think, okay? All you do is you broaden your criteria until you get 3. And ladies, the easiest way to do that is to raise your maximum age that you'll consider. That's the best way to do it. Okay. And then, of course, you follow the traditional advice. There's plenty of people who can advise about spending time together, doing exciting activities. Exciting activities raise the dopamine level. She needs to see him doing anything well. It doesn't matter what it is, music, art, his job, athletics, humor, playing with children, anything that he does well. Then she has her hormone cascade. I mean, this is sort of the traditional, or I would say even ideal. It's the ideal, at least from the woman's point of view, because she has a period of rationality going on that she can use. So online dating, this is the technology part. Realize when you go online and these online dating sites, most profiles are inactive. Most of them will not tell you the last time somebody logged on. So a lot of these, there's no point in crafting these careful emails to these people. Don't bother. Find a system that lets you do some kind of easy outreach. Ladies don't chase men. They don't like it, and there's a reason for that, which is, if you look back in evolutionary history, there's one type of woman who is very anxious to chase men, and that is a woman who is pregnant by a man who will not marry her. She has 1 to 2 months to find a guy who will marry her, probably without knowing what's going on. The baby arrives early, he's, if all the women around him are telling him it's all okay, he'll probably think it's fine. So this used to happen, right? It probably happens even now, but now with these paternity test kits, this is not going to work anymore. So ladies, don't even bother. Okay. I like eHarmony. They have a system that works. It worked great for me. It used to be for religious people. Now it works for non-religious people as well. They actually do such tight screening that 2 of my friends who should have been admitted were denied access to the system. So I've met one of the co-founders. I have to talk with him and say, look, you are over-screening these group of people. So as I mentioned, you have to meet in person right away. First date jitters, just go on a lot of first dates until it gets to be routine. You go to the same places, your hair is the same, your first date outfit is the same, you order the same food, blah, blah, blah. You have to focus on the other person, right? This man is in front of you. Focus on him, and you have to stop thinking about yourself. So this is it. What are you doing, ladies? You're trying to figure out, is this a player or a good guy? Is he mentally healthy enough? None of us are perfectly mentally healthy, right? But whatever mental concerns there may be, can you handle them? I actually like Asperger's people myself. They tend to be very honest, and I can actually communicate really well with them. So, mentally healthy is what you consider to be mentally healthy for you. It's good if your work ethic matches. That is one thing where if there's a big mismatch, it can be a real problem. If you work hard and he doesn't, or the other way around, it's going to be difficult.
That's true.
I'll just give you an example. In my own family, there are 2 elderly couples. 2 very high achievers, 2 much more standard people. They both had super, happy marriages over many decades. It's because they matched up. If you had swapped those 2, it would have been a disaster. So, but most important, let's face it, you want a good man. What's a good man? Does he do the right thing when the going gets tough? Like, let's say this is a guy, let's say this is your dad. Let's say he's got Parkinson's. Okay, now we've got a real problem. That's how you know when you have a good man. Does he step up? Okay, I'm going to skip over this. You don't need my advice on how to keep your relationships going.
Wait, I have a question.
Yes, Joe?
How can you test that on a prior slide?
Test what?
On the prior slide.
This one?
No, the one with that guy. Yeah. How can you test whether he does the right thing when the going gets tough?
How do you know in advance, will he do the right thing when the going gets tough? I would say look at his family. Do his family do the right thing? How does he treat his parents? How does he treat his siblings? How does he treat his friends when they get sick? All these kinds of things, I think, help predict that. Great question. I'm a big fan of marriage. In most cases, most couples save a lot of money by getting married, and I can send you these links if you're interested. But if you're both high income, you may have a marriage tax penalty, and it can be large, so you just need to check that out. And if that is an issue for you guys, you can do a relationship LLC, you can get a tax divorce, you can be permanent fiancés. I know people who do that. It's actually not a bad way, because people understand if you introduce introduce someone as, hey, he's my fiancé, everybody knows you're in love, and they will not move in on either one of you. Because that word, you know, you're never more in love than when you're engaged, right? Okay, guys, ladies like biceps. They're not that hard to grow. You can grow some biceps. These are a couple books that I found really useful. This is a great book. This is an excellent book. It's not, of course the title is totally not true. It's not Love in 90 Days. It takes 150 days. Actually, that's what it took me. I did what it said in the book. It took 150 days. The other book is by the founders of eHarmony. I think it was useful in terms of focusing on what do you mean by a good person? What are we looking for when we say we want a good person? And I love talking about this stuff. We can talk about it here if there's time, or you can, I'm easy to find on the internet, just email me. So there's another version of this talk on YouTube. It's easy to find. I'm writing a book on this. Send me your stories if you're willing to be in the book. And email me, and I'd love to talk some more. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. We are going to be passing on everybody's details, everyone's contact details, all the speakers' details, so you can email Christine directly with all your questions. I'm sure we have many. I know I have one. Christine, did it work for you? Are you happily married? Do you find?
I am very happily married. My girlfriends are all jealous of my husband. They ask me if he has brothers. He has 2 married brothers, long-time happily married brothers. I married my husband 4 years ago. Prior to that, I had another 25-year relationship, which was happy up until pretty near the end.
Okay, so now we have another couple of open mic speakers who have generously agreed to talk to us.